Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's Departmental Showcase with Parks Canada. My name is Maya Ben-Goufa Saint-Laurent, and I am so happy to be here as your moderator. For those who would like a physical description of me, I am a green-eyed woman with square glasses. I have brown hair and beige skin. Also, I'm studying social science at university, and I have a technician diploma in environment and heritage. For the next slide, as we move through today's session, all attendees' microphones and camera are deactivated. The chat is disabled for attendee, but we will use it to send resources. Please use the Q&A button to ask your question. Vote for a question you like by pressing the thumbs up. This session will be given in English only. The French session would follow at 3 to 4 EST. All the sessions are being recorded and will be available on the Federal Youth Network YouTube channel within the 24 hours following the session. Before anything, I would like to acknowledge that as employee of Parks Canada, we acknowledge and respect that the national office is located in Gatineau on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. In alignment with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to actions and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, we strive to ensure this network is inclusive of all young professionals and for Indigenous employees. So for the next slide, okay, I'm waiting for the next slide, it's okay. Oh, sorry guys, we were having the French presentation. Okay, so today we will have 3 panelists joining us. I would like to welcome Janelle McLeod, Park Warden in Couchibuac National Parks, Antoine Allard, Indigenous Career Navigator, and Melanie Robinson, Assistant Fire Management Officer. Parks Canada has a lot of history. It is actually the world's first national parks organization, with Banff being the first park to open back in 1885. A little more than 100 years later, Parks Canada ranks itself as the 9th best employers in Canada according to Forbes. Our mandate is an important piece of our work and goes as follows. On behalf of the people of Canada, we protect and present nationally significant examples of Canada's natural and cultural heritage, and foster public understanding, appreciation, and enjoyment in ways that ensure their ecological and commemorative integrity for present and future generations. We also manage 48 national parks and reserves, 171 historic sites, and 5 national marine conservation areas. Our role that is shared among the panelists today at Parks, we are guardians, guide to the visitors, partners, and storytellers. Before we move on, here is a video showcasing amazing career and roles in Parks Canada.
Imagine a career that gets you in the field. that gets you on the water and sends you back in time. Or maybe you're more of an office type. Now, how about a career that grows with you? That broadens your horizons with meaningful outcomes that you can actually see and be proud of? Well, these careers exist and are waiting for you. At Parks Canada, our job is to protect this country's special places and share them with everyone. And you'd be joining a vibrant community of like-minded colleagues. We're looking for scientists, tradespeople, managers, and everyone in between. Take your career to the next level. You won't find a better career than here. Apply today.
I hope you liked the video, and I'm gonna move on to the next diapo. Parks Canada has a particular reality because of a strong operational presence and workforce. On one side, you have the operation, which are teams members working in field units all over Canada from coast to coast. On the other side, you have the national office that is located in Gatineau and regroups 7 directorates. In total, it is around 7,500 teams members working around Canada. Today, our panelist Antoine from the Human Resources and Employee Wellness Directorate, Melanie from the Prairie Northwestern Territory Field Unit, and Janelle from the Atlantics Field Unit will be joining us. About that, it is time to meet our wonderful panelists. Each of them has prepared a presentation for today and will be sharing their personal experience at Parks, their connection to the mandate, and what their day-to-day look like in their role. I would like to welcome Antoine. I hope you're doing good and nice to meet you. It is my pleasure to invite you to go first.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay here. My name is Antoine. I am the Indigenous Career Navigator at Parks Canada. I actually reside in Treaty 1 territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I've lived here my whole life on the homeland of the Métis Nation, and I am Red River Métis of European Cree and Ojibwe descent. So I'll talk a little bit more about my position in a little bit, but I just wanted to first tell you all about my journey at Parks Canada. So I started out as a student in the summer of 2017 on the tourism team. I was doing international marketing during that summer, and I actually returned for another work term in the winter of 2018. My values actually just really aligned with Parks Canada, and I really enjoyed the work environment, the people here, and eventually I returned full time once I graduated from the University of Manitoba in 2019. I did actually return onto the tourism team once again, and I spent 4 years doing international marketing. Specifically, again, kind of working with tourism companies from across the world, bringing their clients to Parks Canada administered places. It was a really cool job. It was a really fun job. It allowed me to meet many new people. It allowed me to travel to different places in Canada that I'd never been to before. I learned a lot of new skills, a lot of new abilities, and it really allowed me to grow as a person early in my career, gain more confidence in myself, especially in terms of the workplace. I really, really loved and appreciated my time on that team, but just a year ago, I knew that I was ready for a new challenge. So I applied and eventually became the Indigenous Career Navigator at Parks Canada. So, as an Indigenous career navigator, my day to day is pretty different depending on the week. Generally, my job function is to help recruit Indigenous people to Parks Canada, but also to help them with their career advancement. So, that kind of in turn helps to retain Indigenous employees within the Parks Canada agency as well. So basically, helping folks with their career advancement can look different depending on the person. You know, many employees do generally need help with their resumes and their cover letters, practicing for interviews, that sort of thing. But others might want help, you know, mapping out their career paths, getting advice about training and learning paths they can take to get to the next level, or even just getting an outsider's perspective on their current work situation. So in that sense, you know, every day as an Indigenous career navigator is really interesting. On top of this, I also connect with hiring managers to provide advice on Indigenous recruitment and retention, as well as provide kind of the right fit Indigenous candidates for upcoming job postings. And then beyond that, I often, you know, have several ongoing projects at any one time. You know, funny enough, you know, some of the work that I do is a lot of fun. Like you can see on the slide there, I'm not always just in the office, but going out to different events and different universities, doing career fairs, that sort of thing. So there is some flexibility within this position. And I'm not the only Indigenous career navigator in the federal government. The program was created by the Knowledge Circle for Indigenous Inclusion. And, you know, again, there's some flexibility in each position to kind of do what's required of us departmentally. So there are different projects that I can take on, such as identifying, you know, common barriers that Indigenous employees face at Parks Canada, or that can be things like incorporating Indigenous languages at Parks Canada. There's projects going on around Indigenous cultural competencies at Parks Canada. So there's a lot of things continuously going on, improving the agency and continuing to work to break down barriers for Indigenous people in Parks Canada. But overall, you know, being the Indigenous career navigator at Parks Canada is a really, really special position because our mandate to kind of protect and present the natural and cultural heritage in Canada for present and future generations just makes it really align well with the type of work that I'm doing. But on top of this, you know, Indigenous people were the stewards of this land, water, and ice long before anyone else. And as an Indigenous person, I also kind of feel connected to those overarching goals that Parks Canada tries to achieve. So I'm committed to moving forward with things at Parks Canada and being part of the positive change going into the future. But I feel like I've talked enough. So Chimigwacha, everyone, for listening and for being here today.
Thank you so much, Antoine, for sharing your experience, and your position is so nice to learn about. Um, I would like to invite Melanie. Hope you're doing good as well. You can also share your experience.
Awesome. Thanks, Maya. Just have to figure out the tech stuff. But so my name is Melanie Robinson. I'm the Assistant Fire Management Officer here in Rocky Mountain National Park, which is located on Treaty 2 territory in Manitoba. So I'm going to kind of start with my personal connection to the mandate because it ties into my journey at parks. And I'm not entirely sure if I could fit what a typical day looks like because every day is going to be different. But my personal journey starts with I actually grew up just a mile from the park boundary. So the park was my backyard. I would go into the park. It was my backcountry, my first backcountry trips. We spent a lot of time in the park there. And so it became a very special place to me. And I remember as a young child, I had this dream of working at the North Entrance Gate that was close to where we live. I thought that person lived there, and they just had this sweet job of, welcoming everyone to the park and providing information. So I always had dreamt of working for Parks Canada. Um, with it being my backyard, I had so much time to grow up and experience this place on my own time. And, like many people, I'm sure, I struggled with my mental health quite a bit in my high school years and into my early 20s. And so I remember at one point as well thinking, you know, what is my connection to this place, and what can I do to make myself feel better? And I had been waiting for everybody to come out for hikes with me, and finally I just said, you know what, I'm going to do stuff on my own. I'm perfectly capable of getting out there. So I went on a trail. I went on the Moon Lake Trail, which is the photo in my profile. There is me and my dog on that trail. And it became a really special place for me. And when I was sitting, I was about halfway on there, I was sitting on a bench, and I was just looking at the trees and listening to all the sounds of nature and what I was experiencing. And I just felt a really deep connection to that place. And so I credit that hike and that walk with saving my life, because I don't think if I had found that connection to nature, I think my life would have gone a lot differently. And so that being said, I was in school, and I was like, this could be a really rewarding career if I have the opportunities to protect and preserve these places for other people, because of the impact that the park had on myself, on my life, and my mental health. And I wanted other people to be able to see those things and have those experiences and find those connections. I'm a firm believer we all need nature in our lives. It helps us heal, and it helps us just to really connect to kind of the basic things in life, and makes you realize that all of those other things that are on your mind maybe aren't as important when you can just go and sit with the trees and the plants and the insects and the mosquitoes. So that kind of started my career and my thinking. I started in 2006. So right after I graduated from high school, I got a job as a student, and lo and behold, I got to work at the Northgate, which was my dream as a child. So 2006, I was 18, 19 years old, and I was like, oh wow, what am I gonna do now? I already did what I was dreaming of doing as a kid. So I did 5 seasons or 6 seasons at the Gates. And in that time, I changed my focus of my study into biology and biological sciences, so that hopefully I could have a job working in ResCon once I graduated. Then I worked as a heritage presenter for 1 year. I always say that was kind of like my favorite job, because I got to educate people. I got to take them to these places that were really special to me. And I got to be a little theatric about it. I got to be, Sherlock Bones was one of my characters, amongst many others. So that was a really fun summer. Then I kind of took a little bit of a break for 2 years, and I did a few other things while I was hoping to gain some experience and some training that would help me get a foot in the door with ResCon. And in 2015, there is a fire crew member posting for the park here. So I think I studied probably 2 to 3 weeks for that. At the time, I didn't really know a whole lot about wildland fire, but I really wanted that job. And I remember sitting in the startup meeting with the owner of the business I was a manager at, and I got the phone call, and they said, would you like this job? And I looked at him and I said, all right, you're going to have to find a new manager this summer, because this is my dream and I'm going. And since 2015, like fire management, my first day I was given a drip torch and said, hey, go and burn these slash piles. And I was like, what? This is my job? Okay. So I was a crew member for a few years. In 2017, I moved to Marathon, Ontario, and worked for Puckasaw National Park as a fire technician. Lived my dream of being able to live on the shores of Lake Superior. Absolutely stunning place, and I think it's one of the more underrated parks across the country. But I wanted to work in operations. So the advice I was given was, go be a crew leader. So I came back to Routing Mountain. I was a crew leader for 2 years. We went to many places, Quebec, Ontario, Kootenay, and worked on a lot of wildfires. And then in 2020, I transitioned from being a crew leader to a fire tech in my basement because COVID had shut down a lot of our workplaces. So that was interesting. And I've kind of moved up a little bit since then. And in 2022, I took the permanent position of Assistant Fire Management Officer here in the park. So that means I supervise the fire crews. I'm a member of our national incident management teams. So we go to different places. So last year I spent a lot of time in Wood Buffalo National Park, which is one of those photos in the slide there. And some of the other things we do, we implement prescribed fires. I'm also a member of the duty officer program here. So for example, this morning I got a call at 6 o'clock in the morning because there was a bear in the campground. So I had to go and work with the bears. Unfortunately, the bears knew that I was coming and they ran off before I got there, which usually happens. But that's the thing about my job is I can do so many different things, and I've had the opportunities to work in some of the most beautiful places you can imagine across Canada and helping to protect and preserve those places. So that's trying to squeeze down my long journey and career in parks into a little snippet there. So thanks for listening to me talk about myself, and hopefully it provides a little bit of inspiration.
Thank you, Melanie, for sharing a part of yourself and your experience with us. It is inspiring. And now, hi, Janelle. You are our last panelist for today. So I'm inviting you to share your experience.
Hi, everyone. I don't know. Can someone just tell me, can you see me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So I can't see myself. So hopefully my made up, you're balanced on like books and my cup of water. So hopefully that's working all right. So I'm a park warden within Parks Canada within our law enforcement branch. So I work under our protected areas, establishment and conservation. My main tasks would be enforcing the Canada National Parks Act, protecting natural and cultural resources, being part of a high quality visitor experience. But at the end of the day, we're basically responsible for all law enforcement related things within the national parks. I'm currently stationed in Kouchipequac National Park. I was in Terra Nova, if you're familiar with Newfoundland. So I've gone from Newfoundland to New Brunswick, and in the future we'll be heading to PEI. So a background about me, I got into this largely because of my love of nature and my wanting to protect it. I've always had a very big passion for those two things. I grew up telling my mother, we would see the local conservation officer and I would say like, oh, I'm going to take his job one day. And that was when I didn't even know this job existed with park wardens and within Parks Canada. Completed which is it was a 2-in-2 program with Holland College and the University of Prince Edward Island for a Bachelor of Wildlife Conservation. And then I went on to be a fishery officer for a little while. And then once this opportunity came up, we do an experienced officer training program. So you're able to apply as an officer, and then you can do less training time. So I jumped on the opportunity, and here I am. So so yeah, I'm currently on an assignment here in Kouchipequac National Park in New Brunswick, and I'll be heading to PEI in the fall, which I plan to settle down and and not move anymore. And that's one of the great things about our organization, is that it's not forced relocations. We don't have to move every few years like some law enforcements do. So it's nice that I can go to PEI and hopefully kind of settle down and stop relocating so much. So I'm looking forward to that, because that's actually where I'm from originally. And one of the, on the other side, is that you do have that ability to move around the country and see some of the most beautiful places that Canada has to offer. Or you can settle down somewhere without that kind of fear of, you know, in 3 years, I'm going to have a forced relocation. So it's not like that. So that is a really nice perk of this law enforcement. And having worked in different areas of government, I can say that I really do like Parks Canada. It's been a really good experience, and a great career building experience for me as well. I really believe in what our mandate stands for, and it's extremely meaningful and honoring to be part of that and part of this agency. Personally, I love all flora and fauna, but especially insects and birds. Those are my big two. And the fact that every day I can kind of go out and do things to help protect them is it's a pretty powerful thing for me. So I'm super happy with my work. So our job is largely based on Parks Canada's mandate, in that we enforce the Canada National Parks Act that was created basically to address the mandate and uphold all the regulations associated. So we protect natural and cultural resources, ensure that high quality visitor experience, but with a main focus on law enforcement. So in the day of a life of a park warden can change almost to the minute, depending on what's going on or what you're faced with. But we could be out on a boat patrol, we could be on horseback, depending on where you are in the country. We could be in a marine protected area, patrolling for whales, bike patrol, backcountry, you name it. Snowmobile in the wintertime. It's a pretty cool thing to kind of get a different experience every day and see the park in different ways. And even I've been up on helicopter to patrol that way as well. So it's been a pretty cool job, but it largely depends on where you work and what the priorities are for that park. So like backcountry horseback is more of a mountain, like Jasper Banff mountain block, as we kind of thing, whereas on East Coast there's not so much need for backcountry horse patrols. So it largely depends on where you work as well. So we're kind of neither. It's kind of, I find people get a little bit confused with what we are, but we're not considered police officers, but we're also not considered conservation officers. We kind of live in that gray zone of the law world where our focus is the Canada National Parks Act, kind of similar to fishery officers focusing on the Fisheries Act. So, but we do, we can deal with things under the criminal code. So we work with our police service of jurisdiction, which is usually the RCMP, to kind of to close those files. We also attend training on a yearly basis that's pretty intense. So there's like a physical component, and then your police defensive tactics, and also some pretty real scenarios that you go through, and we do that every year. So it's make sure our skills stay fresh and make sure that we're maintaining a fitness suitable for the job, so that we can go home at the end of every day. But that's pretty much it for me. I'll stop there anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle, for sharing with us your love of nature. Before we move on to the Q&A, I would like to turn to our panelists to learn more about their jobs. So I will start with you, Janelle. How would you describe the culture in Parks Canada?
I saw this in the chat or in the Q&A as well. So this is a big one for me, and I'm really very passionate about this. I would say, before I answer, I'll say that the culture is what you make it. And that goes for regardless of who you work for, agency or department or private sector, it's what you make it. I would say my advice would be to avoid negative people and don't fall into that trap of focusing on all the negatives yourself. No matter where you work, there's going to be things that maybe decisions that you don't like, or maybe decisions that don't make sense, or things you just disagree with. But I suggest that you find those people that lift you up, support you in your career development, and bring joy to your everyday. A lot of our time is spent at work, so it's super important that you feel good about it. If you don't like it, I would say try something else. It's important that you find happiness at work. Be a good person, leave people with positive memories of you, and make sure you express your feelings without accusing others of things. I think a lot of issues that I've seen arise in my years of working is miscommunication and people not knowing where their own boundaries are and then having a reactive response. So we're all human, we all make mistakes. It's important to value yourself and know what your boundaries are so you can clearly communicate them without being in that state of flight or fright for yourself, fight or flight. But with that, I will say that in terms of how I describe the culture here, it's pretty good. It's great. Like I'm super happy with making the choice to come to Parks Canada. I feel like I can make decisions for myself. I feel heard when I have something that I want to say or have a concern, and I feel like I matter. But at the end of the day, it's also because I know how to fight for myself. I've also done a lot of therapy to work on myself on a personal level, and I know what my boundaries are, and I'm very confident in the decisions that I make, and also know what my triggers are, so know how to deal with those and kind of de-escalate myself. So if you don't take anything away from this, it's to know that it's not okay. It's okay to not be okay. So just knowing when you need to take that step back and being part of a positive, inclusive environment to encourage others to do the same.
Thank you so much. Those are really good tips. And Antoine, if I'd like to ask you the next question. What do you like the most about your role of Indigenous Career Navigator?
Yeah, I mean, kind of as I mentioned when I was having my first kind of discussion with you all, it's just a really cool role. It's a really special role. It's one of those unique positions where you can work directly with others. You can work with people on other teams. You can collaborate with a lot of people, and really just help achieve either individual goals or team goals or organizational goals. So in that way, it's just a really fulfilling, rewarding job to be an Indigenous career navigator. Of course, on the other side of things, it's not always easy. I think the work's obviously important to me personally, and I think that there are obviously a lot of barriers that Indigenous employees can face, and sometimes those barriers come up quite often and can be frustrating to deal with. But at the same time, it's really important work, and actually one of my favorite moments in this position was back in the spring. I was helping out an Indigenous employee for about 6 months, and they eventually got hired into a really amazing role. And they told me it was their dream job and that they wouldn't have been able to get there without me. And so there aren't that many positions in your career where you're going to get that type of feedback and be able to feel fulfilled like that in your position. So really overall, it's hard to pinpoint maybe one thing specifically, but yeah, I'd say overall it's just really amazing to be able to help others reach their goals.
Today, my world is inspiring. So thank you so much for answering to that question. And Melanie, for the next question that we have before the Q&A, what would you say to someone wanting to work at Parks Canada?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think ultimately what I would say is do it. It's a great opportunity, and it's a really awesome way to spend a lot of time in nature, and get paid to do that and see some of the most beautiful places that you can imagine that are in Canada. But at the end of the day, I think, if you are wanting to work for Parks Canada, apply for whatever jobs are available. Look for, especially if you're a student, look at staffing inventories, different types of student programs, and then take those opportunities, because you might not get the exact dream job you want right away. Or maybe you're like me and your dream job is actually just to work at the gates. You might get that. But even if you don't have or get the position that you were really, one of the things, especially in some of the field units, the actual park sites, is that we have so many opportunities to cross train and work with other departments. So when I first started, I was working at the gates, and I went out with the ResCon team, and had a really cool experience. We actually went out with one of the, at the time, they were considered just the park warden. I'm dating myself here. But there was a call for a bear, and when I went out, it was a younger woman. Coincidentally, her name was the same as mine, and that was actually one of the first times that I saw a woman doing that job that I predominantly just seen men doing. And so that event inspired me to change my education and to really pursue a career with ResCon, resource conservation, because I could see that representation, and it became something that was real, and that could be achievable. So take those jobs that might not seem the most glamorous. You'll likely have a pretty good time anyways. Apply for everything. Talk if it says, hey, contact this hiring manager for more questions. Talk to that hiring manager and have those conversations. I have done a lot of hiring, and we're always here to help people through that process. Applying sometimes is a little bit challenging with doing some stuff online, but we're trying to reduce some of those barriers. So just take those chances, look for those opportunities, check out Facebook pages, lots of job postings get put on there, and just be open to trying new things, because you never know where that might take you. You might be like me, start at the gates, and 16, 17 years down the road, you're helping manage a fire program in a field unit. So yeah, it's there's lots of opportunities, and take what you can, and have those experiences, try different things. It might surprise you that there's a job out there that you might not have known about or didn't think you would like, but once you start learning more about it, it's actually really in line with what you're looking for. So long story short, take the chance, apply for jobs. It's a great place to work, and I think that at the end of the day, it's one of the most rewarding jobs that I've had. Even if it was just selling park passes, it was a very rewarding experience. So that's all I have to say for that one, Maya. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your answer. We'll move on to the question from the audience, of which you may use the Q&A function. Please remember that you can vote for the question you like by using the thumbs up. Okay. So, question 1. Antoine, maybe you could answer the following question regarding parks opportunity and regional offices. We have 3 questions where the participants are wondering what is the best way to find open position if office roles are available outside of the national office, as well as the flexibility of the work location at Parks Canada.
Yeah. So I guess to start, there are definitely a ton of office roles available at Parks Canada, both within and outside of the National Capital Region. So I guess basically Parks Canada administered places are often grouped together into things that we call field units here at Parks Canada, and there are a ton of office-based positions in each region. So, that can be Really anything from admin to human resources to finance to many other positions. And some positions can be a bit hybrid where you're kind of in the office sometimes and sometimes you get to be out on the land. Um, but beyond that, if you're looking more at telework only within a region, you're not in the national capital region. For example, my position is actually based in the national capital region, but I live and work in Winnipeg. So there are a ton of office roles within what we call national office. It can be things like Indigenous policy, protected areas establishment, visitor experience, again, human resources, finance, those sorts of things. So there are a ton of office roles, a ton of opportunities out there. You don't only have to be located in the NCR. You can definitely be located really anywhere in Canada, and there are opportunities at Parks Canada. In terms of the looking for actual positions, I know that a lot of you already know that jobs.gc.ca is probably the most commonly known and most commonly used place to kind of find jobs at Parks Canada. Um, I would be, one to suggest that you take a look and sign up for email alerts and those sorts of things on jobs.gc.ca because there are a ton of Parks Canada postings for a ton of different national parks, national historic sites, national marine conservation areas on there. Actually, if you just look it up right now, I think there's about 40 different positions that are posted right now. But of course, on top of that, there are different ways you can find out about job positions. If you're in university right now, for example, you can go to, career fairs that Parks Canada typically attends. There are a bunch of, again, human resource positions where some people in those roles kind of attend the local career fairs. You can even just visit a Parks Canada administered place and ask if they have any jobs available, if they're hiring for the summer. Sometimes I've heard of people that have gotten positions from directly, kind of going to a location or knowing someone at that location and asking them about it. On top of that, people who are internal to government have different access to different things like gccollab.ca, gcconnects.gc.ca. So there are a couple websites where people post some positions as well. But yeah, I think to be completely honest, jobs.gc.ca is usually the way that most Parks Canada administered places do kind of generally advertise. But beyond that, there will be some local advertisements. So you kind of just have to keep an eye out in terms of job postings in your local areas as well.
Thank you, Antoine. This will help us a lot. And for the second question, it is for Janelle. As a woman in parks law enforcement, how supported and safe do you feel on the job?
That's a loaded question. As a woman, I think as a woman, there's still, I'm not going to say that it's perfect. There's a lot of work to be done. And that's where I find, for me, the biggest thing I've done is going to therapy and working on myself so that I really know where my boundaries are and I know when people are crossing them and I can speak to it immediately. Like a lot of different groups, it's an uphill battle, and I still feel extremely supported by my colleagues. We go on vacations together. I call them. I'm part of our peer support team for critical incidents and to kind of help people through those. But I know that I can also lean on people within this organization for support. So I would say I feel really supported, but I do also feel that it's not a perfect world, especially in law enforcement. There's still some things that women have to kind of put their foot down for, but I'm honored to be part of that and to be kind of leading the way. There's three or four, basically we're very outnumbered from men to women within the law branch, but it's an honor to be part of that and to kind of be leading the way forward in terms of being better appreciated.
Thank you so much. For the next question, to all of you three, do the outdoors role usually require science background education?
I can speak to that, Maya.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of outdoors positions. We have, and I'll mostly speak here to our field unit in Riding Mountain. We have trails positions, we have grounds positions, we have people that have to take care of our front country sites, so like our day use, our picnic areas, and the people that are doing that, they don't have that science background. It's not a requirement for the job. And they do get to spend a lot of time outside. So my roommate works on the trails, and she actually spends more time in the bush and exploring the trails than I do these days. I'm a little bit more based in the office. And even when I worked as an interpreter, though, we would take people on guided tours, and we would go and take them out to some of these front country sites and look at the bison and stuff like that. So there's so many opportunities where you can actually be working out in the outdoors where you don't require like a Bachelor of Science or a bachelor's degree. Like most of them you need your post or your high school and like a driver's license for the most part. And then you can have those opportunities. And the really wonderful thing is that you'll learn so much about the environment and from nature. And we work closely in resource conservation with a lot of those other departments like trails and the ground staff and highway maintenance. So there's so many different positions, especially within like the actual national park sites, where you can get jobs and you can be outside and you don't need to have a bachelor's degree. So if you're interested in it, like I said before, just apply for those jobs. You can have some really cool opportunities.
Thank you so much again for answering our questions. For the third question, is there work being done at Parks Canada regarding climate change?
I can give a bit of an answer to that. My short answer is yes. I know, like within PEI National Park, there's basically like a team dedicated to dealing with climate change and trying to reassess how we look at things and how we approach things to more better be in line with addressing climate change. But to say if there's specific, I would say there would be some, and it kind of depends, like working within resource conservation, I find is that it's a very good step in the door to being part of the climate change action plan, and things are being done kind of all across Canada to help address that. Like an example I can think of is the Coastie selfie, or not selfie, but it's basically like there's these specific platforms posted along the coastline in like Kujibukak National Park and PEI National Park, where people can take photos and then upload them to a specific place. And it gives us the ability to track real time how that coastline is moving. So initiatives like that, I wouldn't say there's like a specific section in each park for climate change employees, but working within resource conservation, they're definitely, taking steps to work towards that. So if that's something you're really interested in, then absolutely there is an avenue to do that within parks.
Just to add on to that as well, within our protected areas establishment and conservation branch at the National Office at Parks Canada, we do actually have a climate change team. We have a climate change manager and people under them. We have climate change scientists and climate change specialists and ecosystem scientists, climate change program officers. So there are definitely things going on around climate change at Parks Canada, and we have specific roles specific to climate change as well.
Thanks to you too. We are learning so much. For the next question, let me a moment. Okay, I have one for maybe the three of you. For those who work on sites at parks and may be moving around, how do you balance your career with family needs?
I guess I can go first on that one, seeing as I've kind of been doing that. For me, I've kind of had the benefit of being single and wanting to move around and kind of experience new places and get to live in new provinces. But I do find, like within Parks Canada's realm, like the work-life balance and the acknowledgement of, you know, dealing with things on the personal level is pretty good. So they're pretty, it's been pretty reasonable, regardless of the situation that I've been in. But I mean, specifically for me, it's I have a partner now, but they've been willing to move with me to where I basically want to work. So that's worked out very well for me. So it kind of depends on what your aspirations are and what the ability you have is to move around. It's more so like, if I would say it's easier for people that really want to move around. There's lots of park wardens that have families that move around, and ultimately the goal is usually to get closer to home or closer to something. So it largely depends on the situation, but I would say that you will be supported if that's what you would like to do.
Yeah, Maya, I can speak a little bit about this as well. So I have similar to Janelle. I have been, I don't know if I would also say lucky, although I really enjoy my life. But again, I'm single, and my family is my dog and my cat. And they travel quite well with me. So if I do need to go somewhere, they can usually come. But again, like my career that I chose is a career that can be really demanding, just because of the nature of wildland fire. So there are a lot of periods. Last year we had some of our crews were gone for over 10 weeks of the summer on deployments. And then, you know, we have things like work rest guidelines within fire management, which states that if we do go on a very long, if we're on a deployment, when we get back, we have a mandatory time off. That we're allowed, you know, that we can decompress, we can spend time with our families and do a lot of stuff before having to return back to work into our normal roles. And additionally, I've always found support and support within fire management as well across the country, and being able to take that time for myself if I need it, or others, and really supportive of the fact that, you know, people need time to decompress, especially for some of these really high stress jobs like law enforcement and fire management. And, you know, we had a crazy wildfire season last year. So quite a few people were taking some time in the winter just to be able to recharge and come at it again this season. So yeah, our union has fought and has some really great benefits for us that, you know, dictate how much leave and stuff that we get, and that helps a lot with that balance as well. So yeah, I think it's a really good balance for some of these jobs.
Thank you, Melanie. This was our last question of the day, and I want to thank our wonderful panelists that have been sharing their experience with us today. Thank you for their response that were honest and caring. Before we go, you can see there is many reasons to work for Parks Canada. Don't hesitate to look us up online and consult the brochure that we just put in the chat. And thank you all online for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you all with us. I hope each and every one of you get a chance to experience one of our parks, reserve, or historical sites. Be sure to sign up for the next departmental showcase. Have a good day.